sometimes life hits you really hard. But when they're like, hey, I found your address and I'm gonna come and cut you with a chainsaw, it really took us out of the romance, you know? And later that would be like one of the several contributors to a divorce. You can expect to be fired in like a period of 1 to 3 months, you know? If you're gonna go fast, go alone. If you're gonna go far, go with people.
Morgan.
Yes, sir.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
For the last 6 months, I've been to 8 countries, and many people I've met have a dream of becoming digital nomads.
Yeah.
It was surprising to me because they were calling me a digital nomad, but I was not actually thinking in this way because my lifestyle just naturally became the same as a digital nomad. So, who is the digital nomad, after all?
So you have two terms that kind of float into each other, and I don't really know exactly where they separate, because there's remote worker, and then there's like digital nomad, and of course there's expat as well. So I don't know exactly what the term differences are, but I think someone who has left their home country, and usually they're working from a laptop, they're location independent, and as such they can travel a lot. How long is up to the individual. Personally for me, I find that I get a little bit annoyed if I travel every 2 weeks. I have tried that interval. That doesn't work for me. I did that extensively last year. Every 2 weeks, like for 100 days, I was going to a new place. That's not the way to go. But 3 months is also too long, I find. So somewhere in the middle, people tend to go for like a month, 2 months, 3, depending on the visa usually, as far as I know. Yeah, someone who works from a laptop.
So, do you actually count yourself as a digital nomad?
Yeah, I do, I suppose. Although I've stopped traveling as much now as I used to do, but I was also a digital nomad long before it was coined as that phrase. I remember I came across a book called The 4-Hour Workweek. It's an old book. I came across it, I guess, 15, 16 years ago, written by Tim Ferriss, and it's about basically outsourcing most of what you're doing in terms of like employment or as a CEO. Outsource everything so that you are location independent and time independent, so that you can go and travel. And if you can make money in your home country, like especially us coming from the western part of the world, usually salaries are higher than here, but are like if you can earn high salaries and at the same time lower your expenses by changing your location, like geo arbitrage as it's called, you can basically, it's the same as earning a bigger salary. So that's kind of what turned me on to it. I'd never really thought of it as a digital nomad kind of thing. I guess I started my first nomad job when I was approximately 20 years old after my military service. I got a job for a pretty big television channel, and I was traveling all around Europe organizing events. And I did that for about 2 years, traveling from country to country. Yeah.
Do you think that this digital nomad lifestyle is a definition of freedom for an individual?
I think yes, for a lot of people it is, for most people even. When you don't have to go to one specific place, it can feel very freeing. But some people also need structure in order to be productive. And when you're traveling a lot, you might find yourself floating down the river without really being able to change where you're going. Also, when you're not in the same location all the time, you might run into issues such as weak internet. You can get sick. I've had my laptop broken. I've lost my camera for a period of time. I got it back. But yeah, you get other types of problems, but at least you can choose where you want to be, and that's really good.
So, in terms of that, do you think for, like as you said, you can be any place possible, and you have so big choice. And I felt it on myself that sometimes this choice becomes overwhelming, and you can't really choose where you want to go, what you want to do, and you, as you mentioned earlier, you become a CEO of your work, of your life, basically. But do you think, is it really difficult to become a good CEO, because so much of options, so much destinations to go, so many options? How to make the structure out of it?
Yeah, so everybody's different, so we're going to be dealing with conflicts in separate ways. So for me, I find that I work better if I'm location independent, but I also need some form of framework. So if I travel too much, I have a tendency to lose track of what I'm doing. So I prefer to be in one spot over a longer period, like a medium, like a staycation, I hear some people call it. So 1 to 3 months usually is how long I prefer to stay in one place before I gotta go somewhere. Is it difficult? Well, it depends on you. Like, are you a disciplined person? Do you know what you're doing? If you go to really fun places, you have to be disciplined so that you don't lose yourself in the entertainment. Like living in Bangkok as an example, Bangkok is a really cool city. It's too cool. For me, it's too cool. Like, I want to go there on holiday, but if I go there while I'm working, I mean, maybe it's not the best fit for me, because there's always something going on at every single hour of the night. Like if you want to go bowling at 6 a.m., I'm sure you can do it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think if you have the right personality for it, sure. Yeah, it's definitely possible. But you also need, like, if you have people working under you, you need to have people that don't need you around, because some people need that structure coming from management as well. So it depends on how you build a company.
Do you think that this lifestyle of digital nomad actually spoil this feeling when you have the fixed amount of months, say you work half year of on your job, and then you know you're going to have a vacation, so you have this dopamine that you know that it's going to be so sweet to finally go on your vacation, to go on the beach or maybe mountains, if you like, whatever you like. And when you do it every single day, maybe not every single day, but you have so many options to and so big choice, so the traveling is not exciting anymore when you have it, when it's available, as you mentioned earlier, because you have access to it. Do you think it's actually ruined the experience, or it still make it good?
That's a good question. That's a tough one. And maybe you're asking the wrong person, or maybe the right person, because I've traveled a lot. Like, there were periods of my life where I was traveling 8 months of the year. Non-stop.
Okay.
So I never had a chance to look forward to my next trip, because it was like always happening. So that's kind of stayed with me. I can't really say I get a dopamine hit from traveling anymore, because it's been I've done it so many times that it's like second nature to me. But I can tell you that if I don't travel, it also feels wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
Like, it feels like something is missing. I get restless. I'm actually going somewhere tomorrow. I mean...
So do you have this exciting feeling that you will go somewhere, or you don't have?
There's a couple of things that excites me, but they're smaller things now. So I'm going to Vietnam, and I've been to Vietnam twice already. I was there twice last year. And the thing that I really, really love in Vietnam, especially in Hanoi, is coffee. The coffee culture.
Coffee's good.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I'm not that big into coffee. Like I'm not one of those like hardcore coffee lovers. But Hanoi coffee for me is something like it's almost like its own destination. So I love doing that. What they do with coffee is so interesting. Like, they treat it more like a cocktail rather than the drink itself, right?
I think so.
So I look forward to that, and the food. The food is so good. Oh my God, can't wait for that. But in terms of like going to the beach, I live in Chiang Mai now, where it's, well, the mountains of Thailand, and there's no beach. Like, you have to travel far to go to the beach. I don't miss it. I really don't miss it. I'm going to Da Nang also, and not really caring about that. But the food, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the other thing about digital nomad lifestyle is how you handle loneliness, because in many cases, if you go to a new place, or if you switch destinations often, you feel lost. I felt it many times last year, because most of my friends, most of my best friends and family especially, still live in my motherland, in my country. And though I was trying to pull them to go somewhere, it's so hard. And you should understand this. People are so love to be attached to some place, to someone else. So how do you treat the loneliness while you're somewhere else?
So I've definitely felt lonely a lot as I was traveling, but I can feel lonely while I'm with people as well. So it's not necessarily if I'm with someone or not. It's more like a personal experience of what I'm doing. One of the best ways that I know how to deal with the loneliness is to use a website called meetup.com. There's usually people that are organizing events in every city that I go to. And I find that that's a really interesting place to go and find people. The older you get, and especially if you're a man, like, it becomes more and more weird for you to approach strangers, right? Like,
Okay.
at least, maybe it's just me, maybe that's just how I feel about it, but it's like, I don't want to be the weirdo. You know, if I see if I see a bunch of young kids talking in a bar, I'm not going to go up to them and be like, "Hey, I'm your friend now." So that's super weird. So I prefer it to be some kind of like reason for people to meet. And I think going to meetups is a good place to start, at least. There are other websites too. Like there's a good website called Nomad List, where it's a paid service. I think it's like $100 one time kind of thing. Forgive me if I'm remembering the prices wrong, but basically you can see who else is registered and is also in your city. And there are thousands and thousands of people using that site. To my knowledge, it's the biggest one of its kind.
There is also couchsurfing. I think we talked a bit about it before.
Yeah, so I know about couchsurfing. I never used it, but I guess that's a way that you could find people as well.
Yeah, so you can go for a hangout in any given place. And in my experience, in the previous couple of months, I was using it a lot. And yeah, Meetup is good, but sometimes you want to spend more time with someone. Couchsurfing might be better because some people can host you at the same time, and you can have some like experience of actually going like for a hangout a couple of times in a week, maybe if they up to host you for this time.
Yeah.
So this might be a better experience. So for example, in my case, I was staying with the host in China, in Hong Kong, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that makes sense to me. I prefer to have my own privacy, like where I live.
Yeah.
So I don't want to live with somebody else. That said, like last year I went to Japan and I tried one of those capsule hotels. That blew my mind. Like
Right.
I'm a tall guy, so I'm like 192.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to fit in one of those capsules. It was perfectly fine.
Really?
It was really, really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought it was going to be noisy and like too many people and that kind of stuff. It wasn't. It was great. It was really, really good. Like I can't believe it's that cheap and that good. So I don't know if that's the experience everyone's going to have every single time, but I went to Kyoto, I tried it, I loved it. And they had these communal areas that people could talk to each other, hang out, play games. And yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting way to meet new people as well. Yeah.
So you said sometimes you can be lonely among people. Which way, how you can turn this around to actually to make it feel like you're engaged in a conversation? Because I think we are talking about the case when you came to a new place or you meet new people who are coming to your place. So it's mostly like talking to strangers. So what are the ways how you can make this conversation feels like you're talking to a friend, or how you can make it better?
I think if I find the answer to that question, I'm going to be a very rich man. So my way of dealing with it is just kind of accepting that that's how I feel that day, and usually I call it a night, go home, maybe just chill in front of a Netflix movie or something like that, and then try again another day. Typically, it's not the other people's fault. It's probably my own mindset, you know? Like if I'm thinking about something else from work, maybe I'm not really vibing with the people that I'm at. They could be perfectly fine people, but maybe we're not talking about the same thing, even though we're discussing something. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I used to feel it a lot more before, but I think it's mostly a voice in my head that's just telling me to go home. Something like that. I don't know. I wish I had the answer for it, but unfortunately I don't.
Okay. Do you think there are some common, like real features of the digital nomad community which you can highlight?
So I've met a lot of nomads, thousands at this point, and I don't think there's that many common traits. I mean, people do everything. Like, there's so many different types of jobs and so many different types of people. Some people are introverted, some people are extroverted. Some people want the mountains and the cool air. Some people want the beach lifestyle. Somebody wants to go to Norway to go snowboarding. Others want to go to where it's hot. So I don't know if it's fair to say, like, I don't really know how to answer that particular question. Yeah, sorry.
Sure, and it's just an interesting idea I came up with just now, that so there are lots of nomad visas and lots of opportunities for people to go to work in some countries, and more countries coming up with these programs to get these digital nomads to come to their territory. So what do you think? It might be an actual, like a crazy thing or yeah, but what do you think about those people unite in some actual kind of a country, having their, like, have no territory of its own, but just have this trait of a digital nomad? Is it possible?
Interesting question. So yeah, you're right in that there's a lot of different countries that are either already they've already released their nomad visa, or they're working on it right now. Yeah. I think that and this is something that I thought about regarding your last question as well, is like, one of the common things that binds us together is that we're willing to go traveling, which is a form of risk taking, I suppose, and some form like a sense of adventure, going somewhere else, learning something new, discovering something else. When you come from a particular place, if you haven't traveled that much, that becomes safe, but it also becomes boring. So going somewhere new is both educational and also exciting. Yeah. As a form, like, I think you're trying to talk about, maybe I'm understanding you wrong here, but I don't think of digital nomads as one community anymore. I used to think like that in the beginning, but having met as many people as I have now, I just think of it as like second nature. And you find people from all walks of life, all ages. Like, I have a buddy of mine, he's in his 60s, he's a digital nomad, he's been doing it for years. I have people that are under 20 years old in my network, and everything in between, boys, girls, every nationality. Usually when I go to the meetups that I usually attend, it's rare to find two people from the same country, even though there's dozens of people. And I love that. I come from a pretty small place. Well, by Norwegian scale, it's big, but it's 40,000 people in my city, you know, like, that's a big city in my country. Yeah. And it becomes very monotonous. You know, everybody thinks the same, everybody acts the same, wears the same clothes. Yeah. So I always felt like a misfit there. I didn't really feel like I belonged. So going somewhere else, connecting with other people, I think it's easier to find people that are similar in that way. Yeah. But I don't really think of the nomad like lifestyle as one thing that
Unites people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, of course, it's part of it, but at the same time, you touched on the subject before. Maybe you're going to go to a city for 1 month. You're not bringing your friends with you, and the friends you're going to make there are maybe like 1 month long friends, and maybe some of them you're going to travel to the next destination with, but maybe not. So there's a lot of friendships that are superficial at nature.
I've been following some social media news on Norway, and to me, it seems like something really bad happened with taxes there in the past couple of years, or like in particular the last year.
For sure, yeah.
So lots of people left.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what happened?
Right. So Norway is a very rich country with a lot of focus on social benefits to everyone, right? So it's a country that's heavily focused on taxes. We have some of the highest taxes in the world. I don't think we're number one, but we're up there for sure. So me, as an example, when I was running my own business, if I count all my taxes together, so like corporate tax, income tax, wealth tax, VAT on spending, like municipal fees, road tax, all of that stuff, it accounts for 75% of what my company makes, maybe a little bit more.
That's insane.
So that's absolutely unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable to me. And still, I chose to start my company in Norway because it's easy to do. Like running a company in Norway is easy. Like everything is streamlined, everything is online, super easy. But the tax part is absolutely insane. And then last year came, I suppose, what's called the final straw. So to give you a little bit of context, so you mentioned that a lot of people has been leaving, and that's true, because the political direction that the country is going in is going to be better. It's going to be worse. So everybody who's had some kind of wealth has exited Norway. A lot of billionaires have left. We almost had like I think we had over 100 per year, 100 billionaires per year.
That's huge.
Imagine, that's a lot of money that's leaving the country. So our brilliant, loving former Minister of Finance, I think it's Norway's biggest enemy to our progress as a nation. He decided to stop this by introducing a new tax called the exit tax, which is 38% of your wealth that you have to pay if you leave. And that was introduced, well, I should say, so it was introduced as a concept last year for the government to vote on to see if it's going to be implemented or not. I think it will be, and the cutoff date was already last year. So a lot of people got like kind of stuck in Norway. As an example, I have a contact. He's a billionaire, and he was in the process of moving to another country in Europe, and because of this, he can't do it anymore, and he's planning to take the Norwegian government to court.
Wow.
In Hague, because there's a law within the European Union. We're not part of it, but we're like affiliated with it, and there's a law that says no country shall impede, don't make it difficult for people to move across borders, right? And this law makes it difficult to move across a border.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it's gonna stick. If I don't know, you gotta be pretty.
I mean, they can say like you can move through the border, but your money going to you're not going to get.
But that is a form of restriction, right?
Yeah.
So I can see how it might not be legal, but we'll see. But in any case, I decided, no, man, I'm not gonna stay around for it. So I got out like 6 days before the cutoff. So
yeah, that might sounds funny, but I think it's a very brutal thing for people.
It's absolutely nuts. And I think this is one of the things that's most like people should understand. At least the way I look at the world right now, when I look at the political shifts, like what are the trends, in which direction are we going? And I see more and more of this from the Western side. What countries are making it difficult to leave? That's not a good sign. Like I'm thinking about like North Korea, you know, like it's difficult to leave there, and now Norway, you know, who would have thought? But I think you're going to see this more and more in Europe. So yeah.
Yeah, we come into this part, and I have a bunch of questions on that. So I remember your phrase. You said it's so hard to go up, economically speaking, in Norway, but it's also hard to go down.
Yeah.
So speaking about equality, do you think those overprotective governmental policies are way too much?
Well, it depends on what your motivation is. So if you're a ambitious person, if you want to build something, if you don't want to be an employee working as a drone for somebody else, there's nothing wrong with that, but people have different preferences. So in my country, it's very easy to be an employee. You have very few worries. It's very difficult to fire you. If you lose your job, the government will pay your salary, like a big part of it for like 3 years. So it's very comfortable, but at the same time, if you want to be an entrepreneur, the government's going to take 75% of what you're making.
That's awful.
I mean, that's not even accounting for like like all the other running expenses of the company, right? So I think it's I don't remember exactly what the statistics are, but it's something like 95 to 98% of businesses in the first 5 years shut down. It's like almost everyone.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's making it really, really tough. I think there should be more, like a bigger push to help it become easier to start a business, if that's the path you want to take. The government's going to win in the long term anyway if they help you come along, you know. It doesn't make sense to me to cut everything down from the beginning. Very tough. And if you look at the competitor countries like Sweden as an example, it's easier for me to go. I can just move across the border and start there and look at their industries. You know, we have oil and gas and fish. That's pretty much it, you know. Whereas in Sweden, you get Spotify, like you get a lot more interesting technologies, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think there's I think Europe overall needs to think differently about like how easy is it to start a new country, like a new company. Because I'm not looking at any countries in Europe right now for that.
So you said it depends on what is your objective, right? Like if you want to start a company, it is one thing, but if you want to be an employee, it is another. Talking about just a average person who wants to be an employee, do you find this economic protection of citizens a negative factor for personal growth? Because as we mentioned, people don't need to work hard since they are overprotected.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I mean, so we have this expression where the safety net becomes a hammock.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So I mean, I have people that I know that I grew up with that said, I don't really want to work this year. I'm going to just lose my job and I'm going to have the government pay for me. And you can have that for many months.
Yeah.
I forget if it's 2 or 3 years in a row, but you can basically go on paid leave, paid by the government. So I never really understood that mindset. I know what it's like to wanting to have a holiday, but set yourself up for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't have the mindset of an employee anymore. I think it's very, very difficult for me to understand the attraction for that. But I'm also fairly risk tolerant when it comes to starting my business. There are areas of my life where I don't want to take risk, but I think you can easily be a digital nomad if you want to be an employee. There's a lot of jobs where you don't have to run your own company. Like whether, like if you're working with social media, maybe you're making videos, maybe you're a writer, you can help people like in different aspects as an assistant. There's lots of different jobs. I actually made a YouTube video where I highlighted 50 different jobs that are popular among nomads. So there's a lot of different options.
Yeah. So overall, do you think this kind of a hammock that you get for free makes people really soft because they don't really fight for their job, they don't really fight economically for their survival because they get everything for granted?
As a person who's had hardship in my life, sometimes life hits you really hard, and you lose your job. The cost, okay, so let's try to look at the situation from the perspective of the government, where they want you to be so like a citizen that's producing taxes, right? If you lose your job, usually that leads to other things, or you lost your job because of something else. It doesn't really come as a one isolated thing. Maybe you lost your mental health, and then you couldn't produce, and then you lose your job, and then you lose your wife, and then everything goes. Or
vice versa.
Yeah, so everything collapses.
Yeah.
To rebuild from that can take a long time. And like as an example, I remember when the financial crash came. After my studies in London, and before I started my studies in Norway, I had a job at a factory in Norway. And I just started there. I'd worked there for maybe 6 months. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with what my next move would be. And as I was working there, the financial crash came and my job got basically cut. And I got an even worse deal because I'd been a student in London for almost 3 years before that. And one of the ways that they calculate how much money you're going to receive as a social benefit is the average of what you made the last 3 years.
Oh, I see.
So I basically got crushed, right? My benefit was that I was young and I was willing to take any type of job. So I got out of it again. But I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. I prefer not to look at the world as what can the government do for me. For me, government is more an obstruction, if anything. I prefer to have less regulation. I prefer to have more freedom. I want to have as little to do with the government as possible and be more and more self-sustaining. I think that's the best way to do it.
So, do you think we mentioned now, in terms of this governmental influence or kind of home support, so do you think that it is the main reason for many developed countries in Europe to become stagnant? And so, because almost all of the breakthroughs and cutting-edge technologies are nowadays in Asia, like China or in US. So, do you see this as the main reason for that?
Well, you get painted into this corner because the cost of living is so high. And in order for you to try to get by, you need to have X amount of money. And when you're starting a company, that's usually not the case, right? Very few companies are able to produce a salary right from the start and at the same time take care of all your other expenses. So, I mean, you're screwed either way. So basically you're left with very few options. Work hard, save up some money, or maybe you have some investor, or maybe your parents that can help you start a business. Or you can go to a low-cost country. Like, if you want to start a business, there are several countries now that allow you to open up a business for very little money. Some of the countries you don't even have to be there. I'm thinking about Dubai. I'm thinking about Georgia. Hong Kong, I believe, is one.
But it's not the European countries.
No, and I think maybe Romania is possible. Hungary,
Estonia as well.
Estonia, sure, yeah. But I mean, I'm not looking to Europe. I'm not. I think Europe is way behind, and I think that the true economic cost of that is going to reveal itself way down the line when all the industries, all the technology, all the new tech. It's not happening in Europe.
It's not there.
No, and it shouldn't when the political climate or the tax climate is what it is. All the talent is leaving. So it should be a place where it's incentivizing growth, not the other way around.
Yeah. So what do you think? What is your vision of Europe in 20 or 30 years? Do you think it will be it's like just a place of retirees, middle-aged individuals pursuing a slow-paced lifestyle?
That's tough. That's a long time frame. So I spend a lot of time trying to think what's going to happen with the future. Usually 20 to 30, that's tough. But
say 10.
Well, I mean, the way that I see things going, I think it's going to be more and more regulation. Unless Trump's way of handling things is going to be so efficient that Europe has to follow suit. Because I think the way that he's doing it right now, even though I'm not specifically a Trump supporter, I do think what he's doing right now is very efficient long term. Cutting nonsense government spending. We have excessive amounts of that in my country. That's ridiculously high. So to give you an idea, Norway and Sweden are considered very similar countries.
Okay.
They have twice our population. So we're about 5 million, they're about 10 million. Yet we spend twice as much as them
That's crazy.
on government. Why? That's that's insane, right? So I hope that we have an Elon Musk that goes into our documents and find all the waste. If we can reduce the inflation, if we can make like development and company growth, if we can make that focus again, Europe can certainly turn things around. If you have a speedboat, it's very easy to turn around, it's very maneuverable. But if you have a big tank ship, like it's really slow to move it. And I think the political direction that Europe is going in, I don't think it's going to move and change anytime soon.
So you don't believe that Europe can find a way around? So it's like a destined to be fall behind.
So I think we're going to see inflation come up even more. I think the tariffs that are being implemented, I think they're going to take effect even more. I think there's going to be more business created in America rather than in Europe. All the talent is, like, a lot of the smart people are going elsewhere. So the long-term effect of that is certainly going to be that there's going to be growth in other areas. All the smart people that I grew up with have left Norway. Yeah, I think we're going to see a shift in that direction. But usually it gets to a point where it breaks. And on average, every 10 to 15 years, there's a financial crash of some sort, or a market crash. Yeah. And that's an opportunity for countries to reinvent themselves. So we'll see with the next correction or the next crash what's going to happen. I certainly hope that there's going to be more focus on like people helping themselves, on making new business a priority. But for now, I don't think Europe is the place to be.
A few quick questions about the equalities that we mentioned before. So I've heard that in Norway, companies offer parental leave. Is it correct?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. So where not only women get vacation, but men as well, which is, I mean, quite rare among many countries in the world. If you take all countries, do you think it's fair?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really appreciate. So when you have a child, that can be a really difficult situation. Not every kid is easy, and especially if you go from, I have 2 kids myself. If you go from 0 to 1, that's a really big change in your life.
Sure.
Going from 1 to 2 is not that big of a change. But going from 0 to 1 is really, really challenging for a lot of people. And me as a father, being able to be with my children when they're small, I think that's a really important time of their life. And also for me to bond with the kid. So I think that's really good. So I don't remember exactly the details of it, but it's something like in Norway you can either take a total of 10 months off paid or 12 months but getting paid as if it's 10, something like that. And then I think 6 weeks has to be for the father, and then maybe it's the same for the women. I don't recall exactly, but basically, yeah, something has to be the father. He has to stay home with the kid to connect.
Got it. So the reason why I asked this question is that, in my opinion, some of those policies, again, it's my point of view, but they tend to become very unnatural, and I will explain what I mean. For example, when I was in uni, I was applying to summer schools in physics because my major was in physics, and those summer schools were in Europe. It's Germany and France, as I remember. I remember they reserved 50 or 60% of all slots for women, knowing that by default there are so many more guys doing physics than girls do. So this created a huge inequality because the competition for one spot for boys was like 30 for one slot, and vice versa for girls it was like 4 or 5. So do you think they're trying too hard sometimes?
So this is a very hot topic. Very difficult to have an actual conversation about it because there's so many feelings that get involved with the discourse.
We're not going to go into feminist thing,
right? but that's part of it, though. So I feel divided on this topic because on one hand I want equal opportunity for everybody, and that's not always the case. And that's something that you have to fight for. But to fight for equality of outcome is something very different. So, like I grew up with a grandmother who was exceptionally smart, genius level IQ. But in her time, it wasn't normal for girls to go to school. So she became a hairdresser. And we had conversations about how she was resentful about that because her IQ was above genius level. I can say that with certainty. Like she was amazing, and her father as well. It makes me sad to know that was the fate of so many women, right? But to force a quota, I don't think that's the way to go either. But that might be the necessary step that you have to take in between just to get to where you want to be. In my country, we allow everyone to be anything, yet there are more nurses, and like the gender ratio in that field is mostly women, and in the STEM science, like in the STEM fields, is almost all men. To force quota on certain spots, that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel like true equality. I think merit should be the decider. Absolutely.
So you think it should be some limits to this kind of making it very fair in the eyes of the society? I mean, opportunities, because as you mentioned for your grandma, like she might had like much better opportunities, but she got like she missed this because of the way how it was in the society, right? But in the example I made, it like they don't really select best of the best, but simply want to pretend we are equal. We give the equal opportunities. So how do you think we should treat this situation? Because sometimes on the surface, like in a very superficial way, it looks equal, but if you dig one step like more, it looks so unnatural and so much of bullshit in there.
Right. So I like to think of it as an investment, if anything, and I think of many things in that way. So I definitely want equality of opportunity. Everybody should have the same opportunity, but if no woman has ever been president of America before, it might not mean that younger women dream that dream, and as such, the circle continues in the same way, right? Like everybody should have the ability to aspire to anything within some like
extent.
Yeah. And for that to be possible, maybe you do have to create some systems. I don't know, I'm not a scientist in that regard, but it seems logical to me that maybe you need some gender quotas to begin with and then leave it again to basically establish that this is possible so that opportunities can arise later. Maybe it's unfair right now, and maybe it needs to be left alone, but that doesn't mean it's not a good investment short term or long term, I guess. Yeah. It's the same thing with immigration, you know. Immigration in my country is seen like by the people that are criticizing immigration. They're seeing it as an expense in many different ways, both from a country cost, but crime increases, property prices go up. If you already own real estate, that's good. That's but if you can't, like if you're looking to get into the market, it makes it more difficult. But at the same time, maybe the people that are coming into the country right now, sure, they're an expense right now. But think of the problem, or think about the situation 100 years from now, or 200 years from now, when the generations are so far out that the people no longer think of themselves as immigrants or somebody who came from Somalia or Iran or whatever country they come from, but now they're Norwegian but with Ukrainian ancestry or something like that. At that point, I think it makes a lot of sense for the country to deal with immigration right now, because it's an expense right now, but it will be an asset down the line. I think that's true.
Do you mean that government should consider to make it the best possible way for these people to have all kinds of opportunities to live, right? Mm-hmm. In this way?
Yeah. So I think our country benefits from it long term, even though it's a cost right now and it's creating conflict. And I've lived as an immigrant, I suppose, a lot of my life as well, as a foreigner in another country. So I can relate to a lot of the challenges. But I do think that overall, me being here in Thailand is an asset to Thailand economically, especially if I'm making my earnings abroad and I'm coming here to spend it. All the money that I'm spending in the local society is benefiting the locals, right?
Yeah.
So I do think it's a net positive for the country to have immigrants coming in. Yeah, like look at a country if there's mass, like if people are leaving at mass, that usually brings everything down. That's not good.
Yeah. So do you think like it's cheating for the people to say for digital nomads when they travel all year round and they work at the same time, not to belong to any particular country in sense of the taxes, because they're not a tax resident, they're not qualified to be a tax resident of any particular country because they're not living there for say 6 months.
Yeah.
Is it something that is going to be fixed later, or governments are okay with that? Because why I'm asking this question is many more people becoming digital nomads these days, and they are figuring out that they can keep this money. They don't need to pay taxes in any particular place. So government should find some way around this. What do you think? Because it sounds tricky.
So I'm actually spending a lot of time these days doing research on this topic because I'm looking to start up a new business at some point. And optimizing your taxes can be a really big game changer. And different countries have different tax systems. So some only tax you if you live in the country. Some don't tax you if you have a company registered abroad. There are hybrid solutions. There's so many different ways of doing it. So I've thought about, is it better to always be on the move and not be taxable to any one country? For me, coming from Norway, I'm in a little bit of a particular hell. So we have a pretty shitty policy, if you ask me, and we're pretty alone in this. So America has global taxation. No matter where you live, if you're American, you still have to pay some taxes to America. You can't get away from it. I think Australia is looking to implement it now as well. Norway has a similar thing for 3 years after you leave. So even though I left Norway in May last year, something like that, about a year ago, I'm still liable to pay taxes to Norway for 3 years, basically, or 2 more years. So for me, it's not really applicable yet. That's why I haven't devoted too much energy into studying how to do this best. But at some point, it's going to be relevant. But I am looking into it now. And so far, the countries that are looking most interesting are Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai. What else?
Cyprus.
I haven't looked at Cyprus. I know Malta is an alternative. Romania, Hungary,
There are islands.
America now, and the islands. Yeah,
Marshall Islands, I think.
but the cost there can be high.
Cost to get a license, but the tax is going to be zero.
Yeah,
I have
but
a
then
friend.
but you have to have like a person on the ground there,
Yeah.
like a registered agent, and that can be very expensive. I was looking into that a long time ago. I don't know if the rules are exactly the same, but they have their own ways of getting around it. Yeah, I remember in Dubai when I was living there, they've changed it now, but it used to be zero tax, and they said like, yeah, look at us, we have zero tax, and then. But you have to register in a free zone, and the fee to have a company that's
huge
zones is high, right?
Yeah, it's
so
high.
you don't have a percentage tax, but you have a fixed fee that's sizable. So you need to have a company that's producing X amount of money for it to be worthwhile. But now there's taxes there as well. But there's other things to consider, not just the taxes. If you have plans to run, let's say, an online shop or something like that. Maybe you have a membership site, or you're doing drop shipping or something, you're doing something, e-commerce of some sort. You have to think about like, what payment system do you use? Do you use Stripe? Stripe is a like card processing software. Yeah, but not every country allows that. My sources tell me, I haven't checked this, but my sources tell me that Stripe does not integrate with Georgian companies.
Yeah, that's true.
So that rules out the business. If you want to start an e-commerce, like you can't do it. Another friend of mine, he incorporated in Singapore, and he has a membership site that people pay him on a recurring basis. And because he's registered in Singapore, he's allowed to have Stripe, but he must only transact in Singaporean dollars. And if he wants to convert them into American dollars, there's a 2% exchange rate, which adds to his taxes. Forgive me if I'm misspeaking, but basically the principle stays
I know what
the
you're
same.
talking, because like my company based in Hong Kong,
Yeah.
and it is kind of the same situation, because if I receive money in Hong Kong dollars, I don't need to pay Stripe any extra fees.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, the withdrawal fee is also 0% because it's the same currency. But if I receive payments as I do in US dollars, I have to pay like 1% withdrawal fee. So any amount of money I withdraw from my account to my, say, corporate bank account, I have to pay 1% for this, for every transaction.
Yeah, and that's a form of tax. That might not look like a big deal, but
adding the processing fees and all the rest is like going up to 5 is quite high.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's still going to be lower than Norway.
It's hard.
But it's definitely part of the consideration that I'm thinking about right now. So I'm doing a lot of research these days about like figuring out what's the optimal way to do it. When I find out, I'm going to make a product that's like a formula for people to use that I'm going to make very easily accessible so that people can avoid having to do all the research that I'm doing.
Sounds good.
It's not ready yet, but it will be.
Yeah, hope so. I have the last set of questions related to Norway. I remember you mentioned that the worst punishment you can get in Norway is 21 years in prison, which is like vacation plus going to be like 18, right?
Yeah.
So what are those vacations, first of all?
Okay. Yeah, so the prison system in Norway is quite different to a lot of other places because we don't focus on punishing the criminal, but rather rehabilitating them. So the idea is if you did a crime, it's not necessarily because you're a bad person, but you got placed in some bad circumstances earlier in your life. Let's see if we can fix it so that when you come out, you're not looking to do more crime, but maybe now you're interested in being part of society, being a taxable...
Starting a company.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe an employee or something. But so when you're... I'm not an expert at this, but I've seen a lot of people going into jail, and there's some good documentaries on this online as well on YouTube. But yeah, like if you see the pictures of a prison cell in Norway in a 4-star hotel, I think you're going to have a hard time knowing which one is which. and yeah, like you can have your own PlayStation, your flat screen TV.
You have a gym.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
So even if you do a pretty serious crime in Norway, you can still get away with a pretty low sentence, relatively speaking, to other countries. And it's true that we have a maximum penalty of 21 years, which is prison years. I think that's calculated on a 10-month per year basis. So like you said, it's like 18 months or something like that. But that's also only partially true because we have this system where you can get evaluated at the end of your period to see if you need to go back in again, and you can have another 10 years added to it. If you're still not doing everything right, right? And then another 10 years and another 10 years. So in practical terms, I believe you can be incarcerated for the rest of your life, although that's not really the thing that happens a lot. Yeah.
So I remember, I'm a big fan of, if you know the O. Henry, his stories, like short stories of O. Henry.
No.
Okay, anyway, so I remember there is one like a short story of the person who was trying hard to get to the prison because he wanted to get the food for free and the place. Yeah. So what do you think about this, as you said, these conditions of 4-star hotel? Can they be as attractive as people ready to commit a crime to get into that?
Well, I guess it depends on your circumstances, because if you already come from a country that will take care of you if you're not doing too well, maybe prison is not necessary, and education is free. Even if you're a foreigner, you can go to Norway and study for free. So essentially free. You just have to pay for your own books, that's it. So all the way up to university level, it's free.
Same in Russia, by the way.
Yeah, that does not surprise me. So when you have education being free, you can go to prison and get an education, or you can just do it outside of prison.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense.
If you stay in prison, you're gonna get a job in prison of some sort, because they want you to be like functional, right? Some prisons even let you go out and have a normal job outside in society, and then you have to go back to prison again. We had that type of jail. Really.
But you're still going to be on a leash, right?
Sort of, I guess. So very near where I grew up, there was a prison like that, where it's like, kind of like being grounded. Like you can go out, go have a job, and then you have to stay in your bed again at night. Which kind of defeats the purpose of jail. Like what the?
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I don't know.
Sounds like a new concept.
It's definitely unusual. I haven't spent that much time thinking about it. But you're gonna have to do something everywhere you go anyway. So like, what's the point?
Yeah.
But I remember like playing with the idea, like, if I ever feel really lazy, should I just go to prison? Let everybody make my food, you know?
Yeah. You know, to me, it was always mind-blowing because, you know, I don't want to go into too much of details, but reading these memoirs now, like of many people, but now of Navalny, like spending his last days in the worst gulag of 21st century, I'm thinking like how the hell we came up to the point when like some countries, the prison is like torturing people to death, and the others like feels like the hotel, and people can go like vacationing there. Though you said like people have much better opportunities outside of the prison. I would say to me it sounds very sad sometimes, but also kind of I can't still figure it out how it happened in this way.
Well, it depends what you want to focus on, you know, like if you have your brother murdered in front of you, maybe you want to have your feelings acknowledged, like how you loved your brother, and how could that person go and just have a 4-star hotel experience? That could feel very wrong to you.
Sounds terrible.
It doesn't sound fair at all.
Yeah.
But at the other side of this coin is, if you're thinking about it from the like statistical or like the governmental level, at some point, this person is probably going to be let into society again. Do you want that person to come out being even worse as a criminal, being like angry and grumpy, having been tortured, like, do you want to let that person into society? Or do you want society to be more like balanced? Because everybody, like, that person might move next door to you next year, like, do you want let's say that you're a really nasty prison guard, like you abuse the hell out of the prison inmates, and then he moves next door to you. Like, is that a good thing? Probably not. No, I think if you look at statistics, the Norwegian reincarceration percentage is, I think, the lowest in the world. So basically, people that go to prison, are they likely to be go to prison again? And I think the lowest percentage country, I think it's Norway. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's true. Yeah, it's definitely like among the best in that regard.
So if it works, it's amazing thing.
Yeah.
But I would definitely say it needs a courage for government and for society to do this, because this transition from kind of having divorce punishment, like the death sentence, or even like killing people for the worst crime, and having this system where you reinvent, like rebuild someone, like teach them to do the job and to live in the society. It takes a phase transition, I would say. Like it's a big step for the government and for society.
Sure. Yeah.
So
I don't know how to transition. I can imagine that being very difficult for a lot of people, both the inmates and for the people outside. Yeah. I don't think that's easy, and I don't really know exactly when this transition happened in Norway and if it was easy or difficult, because it's like long before my time. But I can definitely see what you're saying to be true. Like it could be difficult, but at the same time, like statistically speaking, it's also true that from a reincarceration system, like perspective, what they're doing in Norway is working a lot. Yeah, and it is quite interesting. Yeah. Maybe you don't want to go back to prison, like if you've realized that you don't have to.
That's cool. If statistics says that, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I remember one thing that really stood out for me. I think I saw an interview. So I don't know if you remember this, but quite a few years ago, there was a terrorist attack in Norway. Some guy went berserk and killed a lot of kids. He basically went to a political youth camp, and first he blew up a government building in Norway, and then he went on a rampage. He killed almost 100 people, including the little sister of a childhood friend of mine. One of the parents of the children that died was interviewed already then, acknowledging the prison system that he was glad that Norway is still focusing on rehabilitation rather than punishment, even though his child had been murdered. It was tough. It still sticks with me. Like
it's deep.
But I mean, it's complicated.
It's really hard. I can't imagine being in this position. But saying this for now.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
It's such a powerful statement. But my country is unique in many ways. Police don't carry guns. So the crime that we have in Norway, although it seems to me that it's escalating, it's still, I would say, relatively low compared to London, where people get stabbed all the time. We don't have that much crime in that sense. I guess that's one of the benefits of having a society where everybody's pretty equal, is that I think one of the main drivers of crime is perceived inequality. Like if you come from a country where there's big differences between rich and poor side by side, I think that's one of those factors that contribute to a lot of crime. But if everybody's rich in the area, or if everybody's poor in the same area, then you have more balance. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Coming to a different topic, in one of your videos, you've mentioned that finance books were the trigger for you to change from 25 to 28.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Which one made the biggest impact?
Okay, so now you're touching on a topic that's very dear to my heart, because
finally.
So to give you some context, when I was studying in London, I was studying psychology because I was passionate about it. I had no plans for the future. and I got this big student loan. I'm still paying on it. It was so expensive.
Wow.
Man. It's like close to $100,000 American dollars. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. So it's down to like 30% of that now, but still a lot, right? So I had no financial intelligence. I grew up in a family with very loving people, but financial education was not part of my upbringing. And I remember being so angry with myself when I found myself in that situation, and I decided to do something about it. And I came across a lot of books at that time. I've read over 1,000 now, finance books mostly, but different related topics as well. And I came across the book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So that book was the biggest game changer for me. So that book in and of itself, like out of 1,000 books, I'm gonna put that at number 1 in terms of most impact on my life.
So I haven't read the book myself, but many people who did say that it is superficial in some sense, because it doesn't really go into too much of details.
It doesn't, yeah, I agree with that. I completely agree with that. So it's not a book that's going to give you some precise tech that you can just implement into your life, but it's more like a guide that shows you where you've been going wrong, and it's kind of like, now you can go in this new direction with this new information. So in terms of mindset shift, it's amazing. And the great thing about it, it's written in a way such that you don't have to have pre-existing knowledge to be able to get the ideas. It's written as book number 1, if you know what I mean. Like you could definitely add to it later, and you definitely have to do that. But yeah, that's the book that you want to read to start. So that was probably the biggest game changer for me. Understanding, like getting a much bigger and better understanding of how finance, money, business, all of that stuff works. And I realized that almost everything that I thought I knew was wrong. Almost everything. To give you some examples, like debt is bad. I used to think that debt was bad. I don't think that anymore. Like at least I know what good debt is. Good debt and bad debt. I used to think that being employed and getting a good salary was great. I don't think that anymore. I don't think that it's about getting as much salary as possible, because being an employee also means you're going to have to pay higher taxes, less freedom usually, and a lot of other things. So running your own business, I think of as less risky now rather than being employed. Like I remember being employed and losing my job because of the financial crash, right? So there's risk in everything, but there's also risk in not doing stuff.
Sure.
Right? So that book was definitely a big game changer for me. Another book that comes to mind is the one that I already mentioned, The 4-Hour Work Week. Just thinking about companies as there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to do yourself if you can afford to outsource it. And maybe you, like, let's say I can do a task, and if I do this task, I can make $100 a month. Sorry, $100 an hour, right? I'm good at that thing. I can do that thing. That's $100 job. But I also have to answer emails and like dealing with customer support, blah, 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 blah. I could hire someone from the Philippines to do that job at $5 an hour. I should not be doing that job. I should pay the money and keep doing what I should be doing.
And so keep your $95
yeah,
in your
then
pocket.
I can keep 95, like there's an opportunity cost in dealing with the nonsense stuff. So yeah, understanding opportunity cost and what can be outsourced and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was a big game changer too. So I put that on number 2. And number 3 on my list, it's tough because I kind of have 2 books that are sort of like tied.
You can name both.
Right. So one is called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Oh,
have you heard about that?
Yeah, I've read it.
Yeah, I love that book. It's so short and so sweet.
Yeah.
But it's really, really, like, it's such a really well written book.
It is.
Yeah. So basically, the short version of that is, in a similar way that Rich Dad Poor Dad is not a book of tech, this book is also not a book of tech, but rather a mindset stuff, like mindset book. So I was actually blown away when I found out that it was a bank that commissioned an author to write that book for them after the Great Depression. So when the markets absolutely tanked in the biggest crash in financial history, at least recorded history, at least to my knowledge, there was a book that was made by a bank to basically help people understand. And just the way that it's written is such a masterpiece. Like makes me want to write a book like that myself by using like Viking heritage. I'll probably never do it, but I feel inspired to do so. Yeah, and that book is so short that you could I read it in maybe 6 hours, back to back. So I've read it many times. All these 3 books I've read many times. The 4-hour work week is more a book where you can open up a specific chapter. And it's not really a story, it's more like a formula, like a step-by-step guide, and you're like, okay, now I'm on this step, so I can go to this book, or like this chapter. But whereas the other ones you can...
When it comes to starting your own business or doing investment, do you need a special mindset for each, or you can have both at the same time?
So the way that I like to think about starting my own business, and I've developed as an investor and as a businessman and like every time I start a new business, I learn something new, or I learn a lesson from the other company. Usually it's something I want to move away from or something like that. Reading these books first will definitely help you avoid a lot of the biggest mistakes. But you also got to be prepared for screwing up. Like business, in my experience, is more brutal than boxing. You get success and then you get punched in the balls and then you get success again and then you get another one. So you got to have some mental fortitude, and there are times when I'm not prepared for the problems that arise. I've dealt with a lot of problems in business up until this point, but like my latest business, I was dealing with death threats, which was pretty mind-blowing to me. So basically I was making YouTube videos and TikTok videos about finance and business. And my videos became quite viral and a lot of people watched it. And some of my videos have more than 1 million views. And when you have that many people, not everybody's gonna be mentally sound. And dealing with the crazies, dealing with people that are in disagreement with me or just want to say bad things to me, that's okay. But when they're like, hey, I found your address and I'm going to come and cut you with a chainsaw,
it doesn't sound
that. I can't really say I've been prepared for that. So that's a new one. But for the most part, you got to be willing to take risk. You got to be willing to learn and be humble about that. And I think the best tip I can give anybody who's looking to do business is surround yourself with other business owners and people that are on the same path as you. Be a little bit with people that are further ahead than you, and be a little bit with people that are not as developed as you are, and try to connect with people in all levels so that you can learn, teach, because sometimes when you teach, that's also the right way to learn, right? Or reinforce the lesson. So going to meetups with other business-minded people, I think that's a really good thing to do.
But at the end of the day, do you think it's hard to switch from being a good businessman, successful businessman, and to start investing money into real estate, into other businesses?
So there are many ways to invest. There are many ways to do business. So there's not one particular formula that's going to dictate that if you're good at one, you're going to be good at both. Often it's the case that it's not it's not like that. But let's say that you have a very analytical mind. If you've studied physics, you probably understand numbers really well, and you can probably calculate really, you can handle pretty complex thoughts, right? That is a particular skill set that's going to take you far if you can nurture it and place yourself in a situation where that is required. But that's not the only way to make money. That's not the only way to invest. like I have this friend that is really good at negotiating. Doesn't know numbers at all. Just a really likable person. Really likable person. And just connects with people on such a wonderful level that doing business is so easy. So when this is a girl. So when she's communicating with the individual, she has a tendency to get her way. And then you have people like my brother, he's never really been book smart, but in terms of brute force, he's so strong. He's been in the gym every day since he was 16, really strong guy, and he's a carpenter, and his business is centered around carpentry. So he can just brute force through expertise, like competence, and just raw energy. He can work 20 hours a day. Like I remember when him and I had to help my parents build a new balcony outside, he was 4 me's, like just his raw physical strength makes him outperform. So typically speaking, I would say know what your strength is and operate in that space. I would even go so far as to say, forget about your weaknesses unless they're absolutely glaring. Focus on your strength and go where your strength really takes you far. Like go where you have the edge on everybody else. That's really, I think that's the optimal play for most people. Yeah.
So many people are attracted to investment, and it is not a new story. Like it was 20, 30 years ago. It was a big boom of people promoting putting your money on some stocks and getting easy money from it. You are among the most famous financial influencers on Norwegian TikTok.
Yeah.
And you also do private financial consulting for people. What is the most common request you get?
So I wouldn't say, well, I don't know how to phrase it in English, but basically I don't do so much financial consulting as I do telling people how I handle things, and then they can be inspired from it. So the questions that people want to know is like, how do I analyze a stock, or how do I buy a new property for a good price, or what area should I buy, or what should I renovate first? My specialty, I suppose, is negotiation and real estate for the most part, but I also have read and studied a lot about portfolio structuring. So basically, understanding what your goals are will help you know what you should be focusing on. Is it better for you to spread and do many different things to avoid specific risk? Or is it better for you to zoom in on that one specialty that you have? Are you looking to grow as fast as possible, or are you looking to make sure you don't lose? Different outcomes, different strategies. Are you risk tolerant? Are you scared of risk? Do you have connections? Like I have my brother. Doing real estate with him is smart, right?
Yeah.
Usually I would advocate, stay with your strengths and develop those more. There's a reason why you're strong in that area. It's because you have talent in that regard. I'm like you, I have a mindset for numbers. I never thrived with physics, but I can do large data sets and make sense of a lot of data at the same time. That's one of the things that I'm pretty good at. So people have a tendency to contact me if they are looking to do one specific deal, or if they just want to level up really fast. I have done some work with complete newbies, but most of the people that contact me are people that are looking to go from, I like to talk about investment as 5 different levels, where if you're level 5, you're like super sophisticated. I have a tendency to work with people that are 3 looking to get to number 4, or people that are like number 2 to get to number 4. So if you already understand some of the basics, you're really going to thrive working with me. But what I provide is basically learning velocity, if anything. So you can Google almost anything online now. Like you can ask AI, and it's getting really good. But being in a community with a lot of people that are looking to learn similar things, that's going to put you in a spot where you can learn really, really fast. So question is like, are you willing to pay some money for like learning really fast so that you don't have to wait 20 years to get to where you want to be, you know?
Yeah.
Because usually I would say what keeps you from making a lot of money is not really what you know, it's more what you don't know, right? So the faster you cover that ground, the better.
I remember in one of the other videos you said that you will never do investment in the stock market because you have a friend and he is so good at, he works in a big company and they have access to huge amount of data because they're willing to, they hire tons of people to do this research.
Yeah.
And they know, like, though the data is publicly available, but they know so much more than we do.
Yeah.
Do you think that in this sense, current state of AI is a game changer and we can know more?
Well, before we get into that, let me help the audience to get a little bit of context.
Sure.
So this is the video that you're talking about is the first TikTok video that went viral.
Okay.
Until today, it's my second best performing video. So when I was living in Dubai, I was married to someone who had a very prominent job in a very big bank. And her colleagues were my group of friends. So this is a trader or he was an analyst for one of the biggest banks in the world. And I was telling him that I was thinking about getting into trading. So buying stocks can be multiple, like it can be many different things, but I was specifically looking at trading. And I remember he telling me that he would advise against it because of all the information that he has access to. So he was basically saying, you know, I have, on my payroll, I forget how many he said, let's say thousands of people that are driving, like, so what he was trading commodities. Yeah. So basically agricultural commodities in South America. So cocoa, sugar, grain, like that kind of stuff. And he was saying, like, I have 1,000 people driving around in pickup trucks that are scouting to see how much grain is coming onto the market because they can see what's coming. It's not illegal, it's perfectly legal. Yeah. It's just, he has access to so much more information than me. And he said, well, basically, if you're doing trading, what you need to understand is you're in competition with me. You don't see me being your competitor, but I'm on the other side of almost every trade that you do. So yeah, he basically told me, like, stay where you have an edge. You don't have an edge here. I have an edge here. You shouldn't be where you don't have an edge. General sound advice. Can you still make money in trading? 100%. Most people don't, but is it possible? Absolutely yes. And yeah, I took that advice to heart. That person is a person that I really admire, really likable person, very, very smart. He's Moroccan, yeah, I really treasure that advice. Unfortunately, like half the people, well, I guess fortunately really, because half the people really love that idea, like love the video, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't even know that the banks could have access to that type of information. That's amazing. Thank you for telling me. And then the other half is like, oh, you can still make money. And then wanted to argue. And it was really interesting to see how people in the comment field started to argue against each other. And every time they did that, my video would just like spiral into more views. So that was kind of the first time that I got truly hooked with TikTok. I remember it very fondly. And then a lot of people got really triggered by the fact that I said why I don't trade stocks. But I was telling a commodity story. Because people are like, oh, he doesn't even know the difference.
It's so much controversial from different perspectives.
Yeah. So obviously I knew what I meant. I just didn't make the connection when I was posting. But yeah, I still think I think the advice is sound. You know, stay where you have an edge. It goes back to that. Where are you strong? Stay there. If you are looking to acquire a new skill set, fine, go and do it. If you want to learn trading, go right ahead, get good at it. You can do it. But if your plan is to draw on charts and just like think that you're doing technical analysis, to me that's like I never got that. it never. I've seen so many people lose their money that way. Almost everybody. I think it's something like 98%. And then the people with ego are like, well, yeah, but I'm going to be the 2%. Like, no, you're not. you're really not. Yeah. So, yeah.
What about crypto? Is it the
Falls
same?
in the same category in a sense because, okay, so let me try to be accurate so that I don't get on, like, so people don't misunderstand me. Can you make money in these aspects? 100%. Can you make more money in this regard, more money than the way that I like to invest? 100%. But here comes the question: like, are you speculating or are you investing? That's one of the big things that I try to hammer into people. Are you speculating or investing? And most people think of those two things as the same, but here's where they are different. So if you're investing, you have a very high probability of getting the outcome that you're looking for. If you're speculating, it's not really in your control whether you do well or not. Now, if you put your money into Bitcoin because you believe that it's the future, can you make money that way? 100%. People that put money into crypto, almost all of them have made money at this point. Almost all of them. Am I saying it's wrong, unethical? No, not at all. But if you make money or not has nothing to do with you. It's what everything else is happening. Like, you're just going down the river, and if the river is going where you hope, great. I prefer to go with the investments where I can predict the outcome to a very high probability, and I can make an educated guess about how much money I'm going to make. So really, there's 3 ways to invest, and everything else is speculation as far as I'm concerned. Either you buy things that are priced lower than, like, let's say that this is an amazing cup, a collectible cup. And everybody online will buy this for $100. I'm going to look for the seller that is looking to make a quick deal and sell it for 70 to me. That way I can put it on the market at 100, or the market can even come down to 80 and I'm still going to bank 10. I don't need the market to go up to make money. If I buy it at 100, hoping that the market's going to go up to 120, maybe it does. Maybe it's a super collectible cup. But I don't want to place myself in the speculation realm where I hope the market will do the work for me. Can you make money that way? 100%. But I prefer to buy it at a discount. Maybe I'm looking for the person who needs, like, maybe they screwed up their life, or maybe they have a better opportunity doing something else. So they're looking to get out of that thing to get over to the next thing. So that's one way. That's called value investing. Another way is to buy something and rent it out. So cash flow investing. Maybe you buy a condo. Maybe you buy, well, one time I bought a hangar, like a trailer for the car that people could rent. I have friends that have, I don't know, it's like a compacting machine. If you're gonna grab, like if you're gonna put asphalt on like there's like a banging thing. Another friend of mine has like a wood chipper. So if you cut down a tree, the stump, a stump remover will grind away the stump.
Okay.
A friend of mine, a woman in Norway, she's renting out wedding tables and chairs.
Okay.
So like outside furniture, stuff like that. Like you don't want to have 200 chairs. Most people don't, right?
Yeah.
Another friend has like slushy machines that he rents out to children's parties. So almost anything can be bought and rented out.
Yeah.
And the cash flow will quickly recoup the initial investment. My brother bought a boat that he rented out. So there's a lot of different things that you can buy and rent out. And the last piece, the last way to invest is basically buy something and fix it up for cheaper than it increases in value. Typically a real estate deal can be anything. If you're a jeweler, buy a piece of gold and make it into a ring, add work to it, make it more valuable.
Yeah. Talking about the first part you mentioned, buying with a discount. Following your examples, a big part of it is about psychology of people who are selling this thing to you. Yeah,
well, it can be. So first of all, you want to have an area where you understand what the real price is. If you're a Pokemon card collector and if you're really interested in Pokemon cards, you can understand prices better than most people. Although today you can pretty much Google everything, but you can find sellers that maybe have a stack of Pokemon cards and they don't even care. They just want to get rid of it. Maybe they're just looking to get money because they're looking to buy a new car. Or maybe they owe their ex-girlfriend's parents money or whatever, right? So you might have to go through a lot of sellers before you find the person that's willing to sell at the price that you need it to be. But typically speaking, you want to go down to, I guess, about 70% of fair market value, so that you have a reasonable price to give.
At least.
Yeah, I mean, depends on what it is, of course, but you also don't want to be like a scumbag. Here's this old lady. Can you imagine? Like, let's say that there's a well, maybe Pokemon cards is too recent, but like, let's say that there's some collectible thing, collectible toy, and then there's this old woman who had a son that passed away, and the toys are still there, like, and that the toy is really valuable. Should you be a scumbag and offer like,
this is a moral?
Yeah, I mean, I think don't do business in a way that you're predatory.
Yeah, goes against your moral values.
Yeah,
I would say it applies to all areas of business and investment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you wanna have some kind of moral compass as well, or else I think you're going to lose yourself.
Yeah, I have some like very personal question discussing with my close friends who actually more of investors of them, like compared to the like business owners, though they have some businesses. And so it goes like sometimes you see so many opportunities to get money, whether it is a business or investment, but something is not triggered by this vision. Should you go for it, or you should just wait till your moral compass will just make this sound that you have to do this, and doesn't matter, the first thing looks so much of profitable, like more of a profit compared to the second. What do you think about it?
That's tough. I mean, some people have the mindset where they don't have to be connected with what they're doing at all. Some people are really good at that, whereas some people need to be deeply connected with what they're doing. I find myself in that category. So, like, I can generate business ideas left, right, and center. I can have 3 business ideas in one day, and they're going to be sound business ideas. And I know that if I do one of them, I'm going to be on point. Business in and of itself is not that complicated, but if you're going to like continue with it over the long period, like, what happens after you're done being interested in it? I find myself in that situation sometimes, because my first business started, and I think it was like 2012, 13, 14, something like that. It was buying and selling gemstones.
What is it?
So like diamonds and sapphires and like engagement rings.
Okay.
And it started with a really difficult situation for me, because I was just a student when I met my ex-wife, was already high up in the bank, she was already wealthy, I wasn't. And buying her a piece of jewelry that was relative to my like financial situation was it was a lot for me. And then she living in Dubai, I was living in Norway, where things like that are super expensive, super taxed. Like the VAT on those things are crazy. When she got the gift, the first thing that she said to me was, you should have bought it in Dubai, it would have been bigger. Like, I wasn't mentally prepared for that, I understand what she means. She didn't mean it in a bad way, but it was, I definitely took it the wrong way, But it was also the spark of me doing research, like, okay, is that really the case? How big is the difference? And turns out it was like 5 to 1. Like, I could buy the same piece of jewelry in Dubai at 20% of the price. It was crazy. Higher quality even. Like, in Norway, it would be 14 karat. There would be 18 karat. So pure gold.
Makes sense.
And then I was like, what happens if I start to buy this in Dubai, ship it to Norway, cut out some of the middlemen, basically triple the price instead of 5xing it. I can provide a premium product better than the market, and at the same time, it's cheaper. And it was a good business for a while, but the thing that I discovered with that business is that it's difficult to find repeating customers. If you're going to get engaged, you're going to buy that ring one time. and then have to find yeah, probably. And there's no margin in wedding rings, so like forget it, you know. Then I have to wait for your 20-year anniversary or something, you know. So I find that it was very difficult to find repeat customers. So my next business was more centered around repeat customers, easy repetition, because marketing is not my strongest suit. It's like it's changed since then, but yeah, that was the mentality around it.
It's interesting story about, like, I think probably the problems that you faced like somewhere in the past, it actually easier to resonate with what you want to do, because if you find a solution for yourself, maybe it is applicable to some other people, and this can be a good business opportunity. For example, like in my case, it was this scenario when I was facing the issue and I fixed it, and I said to myself, what if I can extend it to many people having the same solution?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was kind of how I started, and over time, you know, my connection with that specific industry, and because I wasn't connecting with my customers, it wasn't the same business. I couldn't really deal with it for the long haul. But ultimately, it was a profitable business. So yeah, I think I don't really know how to answer that question like overall, because it's a complicated one, and the answer is probably different for everybody.
Sure.
Yeah.
Coming to the last topic, you've been to many developed countries, and as someone with an analytical mindset, you can't ignore the fact that the most developed countries like Japan and South Korea have the lowest birth rates. What do you think is the mindset behind this situation? What can we say is the reasons leading to that?
Well, to me, it looks like everything changed when family did not become the center of life, but education and career became that. So it's mostly been that for men for a very long period of time. But I think in the most recent part of history, like the last 100 years or so, there's been a very quick change in terms of how many women stayed at home to now almost everybody goes into the career of some sort. Like, I think there's a statistic now where more than half of women that turn 30 have not had children yet for the first time in history. So people are choosing to have children later and later and later, and fewer children as well. Having many children is not financially feasible anymore because the cost of living has gone up so much that you can, like, not everybody can afford to have a lot of kids, you know? So I think there's a lot of contributors to this. But, you know, there's also other things such as the size of a car, the size of like an airplane, like almost all aspects of life is catering to the family that has one or two children. If you're going to have three, like, how are you flying anymore? You know, the life structure and how you do things is not the same anymore. So there's a big difference. Like, I remember when I was a kid, you know, my parents would just open up the door and be like, okay, I'll see you when the sun goes down. Like, no matter what age we were. And we would get into all sorts of nonsense. Whereas now everybody's more followed up throughout the thing. Like it's rare to just open up the door and let your kids roam free. It's not the same anymore. So there's more hands-on kind of stuff. Probably for better rather than worse. But, yeah, like, I think there's a big shift. And I think also there's probably a lot of like personal pressure on yourself to follow your kids up a lot. So I used to say I wanted 3 kids, but that was before I had any. And when I had the first one, I wasn't even sure if I wanted the second.
Do you think it was mostly because of the economical environment, or it's your personal experience that led to this?
That's a tough question. I don't have a good answer for that, because I think it's just it's just this whole concept. Now that I'm older, my kids are like 10 and 12. I'm divorced and I'm not living in the same country as my children. So now I'm thinking maybe it's time to start a new family again at some point, you know? So obviously that would take me out of the 2 kids that I was thinking about before. But in a way, it's still the same household family structure that supports maybe 1 or 2 kids. So, I don't really know how I feel about it. It's a complicated issue, and I suppose depending on the day that you ask me, I might have a different answer for that.
It's interesting. But I'm curious, and many of my friends discussing these things that in those developed countries like Japan, say, and South Korea, all the economical stimulations, they really sucks because say in South Korea they made this experiment, they build a city. Everything is super convenient for families, for people to have kids, and we know that the birth rate in South Korea, the average is like 0.6 per family, and in this city they made everything perfect, but the rate was 0.7. So and they stimulated people a lot economically as well. So kind of, if you have any opinion or any piece of advice, how can we fix this economically? Because as I see now, the economical pressure is the strongest in this in this case for the people.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a simple answer to this, but I think we need to change the whole mindset about what's the highest value. Is it the chase of money? Like, if you really need to work because you need to keep up with the bills, that's one thing, and the cost of living almost everywhere is so high. And when you have high taxes as well, even if you work a lot, the government's still going to take it. But at the same time, I remember when I was growing up, the women or the young girls, I guess, when they said, like, I want to have a family, they were laughed at. You don't have ambition? You don't want to be a lawyer? You don't want to be a biologist or something like that? Like, the girls in my class that wanted to have a family, they were mocked by the other girls because it was not a virtue. It was not like a worthwhile pursuit.
Not a prestige thing.
Which is insane. I mean, you can have a good career, but let's say you're employed somewhere. You're probably replaceable in almost all regards. And you can expect to be fired in like a period of 1 to 3 months, if it gets to that. You're placing the focus on the wrong thing, I think. And there is a difference biologically in men and women in the sense that men can become fathers way into their late stages of their life, whereas women, they're on a different biological clock, it becomes very difficult to get pregnant after 40.
Sure.
So their priorities are under more pressure because they don't have the same amount of time span. And when you have less focus on family and more focus on the career, I can speak from a personal experience. I had a wife at a point, ex-wife now, that was very focused on her career. She had a great career. She still does. She's really happy and proud of what she's achieved, and for good reason. But I also remember how many times that came between us in terms of a relationship. All the nice restaurant visits that we had, where she would get a work call that just completely took us out of the romance, and later that would be like one of the several contributors to a divorce. And think about society overall. How many times does that happen? People that lose their partner, lose themselves because they're focusing on the wrong thing or wrong thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, should career be the main focus? If you want, but I think you should also be mentally prepared for the fact that you're sacrificing. And I don't think that's okay to talk about.
I think not so many people understand that.
Well, it's not okay to talk about it, I think. How are you going to have this conversation? Let's say you have young boy, young girl here, maybe 18 years old. You can focus on career, go live your life, like make all that money. But if you do, you're probably going to get divorced. And like your kid, how are you going to have that conversation? I don't know. And there's so many ways that a relationship can go wrong, that it's not fair to blame only that as well. So yeah, it's tough. I have thought about it many times, but I don't really think I'm qualified to have a complete understanding and be able to explain it. Yeah, but it's a fascinating thing to ponder. Yeah,
I think we as a society should, at the end of the day, pull these questions, because while we having the conversation now, I realized that it's probably a big part of the question that so many people don't actually realize pursuing the career, which things they are sacrificing for getting this career.
Big sacrifice.
Huge.
Yeah, and I can tell you this as a like from a personal experience. My next part, one of the biggest disqualifiers for women that I've met and decided not to pursue now is, are you career minded? Because if you are, I don't think your focus is on the family as much as I would prefer. Not saying it's a wrong thing, but it's definitely a wrong fit for me. So like I would look for a woman that doesn't care so much about career as she is about family. Yeah, I think that's much more important. That for me, that seems more valuable.
Same.
Yeah. But I mean, if you want to travel the world and see everything, maybe you need more money. And if you're going to do that with a family, maybe you need more money. So maybe you need dual income. But again, living in Chiang Mai where costs are cheaper, it's easier to support a family like that.
Yeah. Those questions are supposed to have a short answer, but you're up to say, like, it's up to you. Where is the future? Europe, Asia, or US? And why?
I think America is likely to grow the fastest because of their new president implementing policies that are inspiring growth really fast. And Europe and Asia are going to play catch up. To me, it looks like Asia is going to grow faster than Europe. America first, Asia second.
Europe the last.
Yeah.
Get it. Democrats or authoritarians?
Oh, I don't know. Neither.
Okay, cool.
I'm a pretty conservative guy, honestly. I was more like democratic minded before, but I'm not so sure anymore. No. Yeah. And like the older I get, the more I realize that the older generation had like you know, when you're young, you might think like, oh man, they're the old people, they don't know what they're talking about, like the world has changed so much. And then the older I get, the more I think, you know, the older people, they were right all along. So I guess that's part of growing up. Not everything was great before, but I think there's a lot of stuff that was working, didn't need to be broken and replaced, you know? But again, I'm also just like I acknowledge I'm just an individual trying my best, like on my own. Like I'm not trying to run a country, you know. I'm not trying to be a political leader. So just taking care of my own family structure and trying to get things right.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one, answer it as a digital nomad. Alone or with a family?
If you're gonna go fast, go alone. If you're gonna go far, go with people. So
beautiful.
Yeah, you need a lot of people around you if you're gonna go far.
That's that's beautiful. Okay.
I can't take credit for that. I have a friend who brought me this quote, and I don't even think
It's
he was
still
the
beautiful.
original. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for coming today. That's it, man. That was amazing.
Yeah,
Thanks
I
for
had a good
having
time.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.